All right, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, you can unpause the video, and I'll go over the correct answers. So for the factoring, you should have x minus 4 times x plus 2. For the math knowledge question, we have a triangle ABC. Tells us BC is 2 and AC is 12. Which could be the length of the side? So we're not going to use Pythagorean theorem because it's not a right triangle, although it could be. We know some information about triangles, and you may not realize it, but if this is 12 and one side length is 2, the other one is going to have to be more than 10 so that they actually make a triangle. Because if it's 6 or 8, it's going to get to about here, and it's not even going to make a triangle. So we know 6 and 8 can't work. We also know 10 can't work because it has to be more than 10, not just equal to. Now, if we put the 12 and the 2 side lengths right next to each other, so this is the 12 and this is the 2, this last one is going to have to be something less than 14 so that it'll make a triangle. Because if it keeps going further, then they're not going to be able to reach to the edge. So it has to be less than 14, so 14 won't work. 12 is the only answer that will work. So we haven't actually learned that information. We will later this year, and we'll have this type of math knowledge question throughout the year. But you basically have to look at what your side lengths add up to be and what they subtract to be, and the number has to be in between those two. So we're looking at lesson 23 today. We're going to do introduction to circles. So hopefully some of this will be review. Some of the basic terminology you should already know, but if not, it should be fairly straightforward. So a circle is the set of points in a place that are a fixed distance from a given point. So whatever that fixed distance is, all of the circle are going to be the same distance from your given point. The given point is called the center of the circle. To name a circle, you're going to use the circle symbol here and whatever the center point is. So circle P, circle A, circle Q, whatever it is. All of the points that are inside of the circle, that are within the circle, are called your interior points because they're on the inside. If you have an endpoint that starts at the center of your circle and then the other endpoint of your segment is on the circle, that's going to be called a radius. So if you have an endpoint on the center of the circle and on the circle for your segment, that is going to be a radius. If you have a segment that has both endpoints on your circle and it goes through the center, that is called a diameter. And the length of the diameter is always 2 times the length of the radius, because it's basically just 2 radii put together. So let's look here. We want to identify a diameter, 3 radii, and the center. So a diameter, it's going to have to go through the circle with both endpoints on the circle. So the only one that they draw is CK. For the radii, one of them would be CP, another would be DP, and another would be KP. So that would be your answer for that one. And then the center of the circle, well, where is the center? At point P. So the center is at point P. So the name of this circle would be circle P. That's how you would name it. Okay, so now we're going to look at circumference. So the perimeter of a circle is called the circumference. It's just a distance around the circle. The formula for your perimeter, or for your circumference, is 2 pi times your radius. Now some of y'all might not be quite as familiar with this symbol here. Some of y'all may be familiar with it. That's pi. You spell it P-I. It is a Greek letter. It's an irrational number, and it's defined as the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. And so we just went over that the diameter is always 2 times the radius. So 2 times radius times pi is really the same thing as diameter times pi. And so if you divide by the diameter, circumference over diameter is what pi equals. On the calculator, if you are using a calculator that's in the classroom, one of those yellow ones, the pi symbol is right here above the divide on the right side, and it's in blue. And that's because the way that you're going to get to it is going to hit the second and the pi button. So you're going to hit this blue button, which is second, and then pi. And that is how you get pi. And so if you want to see what pi equals, it's 3.14, and then it keeps going. Some of y'all may already know it. If so, that's great. But that's how you can get pi on the calculator. So there are several ways to approximate the value of pi. One of them is just 3.14. Another one is 22 over 7. And if you do 22 over 7, you get 3.1428. So that one's a little bit higher than pi, but that is another way to approximate pi. So on this one, if no approximation is specified, I want you to use the pi symbol, the pi button on your calculator. Don't type in 3.14. I know in middle school sometimes y'all were told to put in 3.14 for pi, but if it doesn't say use 3.14, if it just says find the area or the circumference or whatever, I want you to start getting in the habit of putting pi in your calculator. So this one tells us to use an approximation of 22 over 7. So we're going to use our circumference formula, which is 2 pi r. So 2, but instead of pi, it wants us to use 22 over 7. And then 28 is our diameter, so half of that would be our radius. So half of 28 is 14. And then we're just going to multiply. So 2 times 22 over 7 times 14 should give you 88. And circumference is perimeter, so it's just feet for your units. Okay. Now we're going to look at our area formula for circle. It is pi r squared. You need to make sure to learn the circumference and area formulas for your circles. Pi r squared is your area. So we want to find the area of each to the nearest hundredth of a square unit, and it says to use 3.14. So for this one, our area is going to be pi r squared, and so it says use 3.14 for pi, and then our radius is 5.4 squared. So if you type in 3.14 times 5.4 squared and go to the nearest hundredth, you should get 91.56. And then our units are centimeters squared. So that would be your answer for that one. For B, again, we're going to do area equals pi r squared. But instead of pi, we're going to use 3.14 because it told us to. Now what about the radius on this one? The radius is going to be half of 9, which is 4.5. So if you plug that in, you should get 63.59 meters squared. So those should be your answers for those two. If you don't use the 3.14 like it asks you to, and you just use pi, your answer is going to be different than what I have boxed for both of them. And so that's going to be wrong because you need to have the same numbers that I have. So if yours is rounded differently, that means you did not use 3.14, and so it would not be acceptable because you didn't follow the directions. Okay, we're going to look at one more practice problem. We have a circle. We want to find the distance around the courtyard, and it tells us use 3.14 for pi. So distance around the courtyard is circumference. So your circumference is 2 pi r. So 2, and then instead of pi, it says use 3.14. And then our radius is half of this 15, which is 7.5. So if you multiply, you should get 47.1 feet. And then it says, what is the area of the courtyard? So the area, we're going to use pi r squared. And again, it says use 3.14 for pi. And our radius is 7.5. So if you do 3.14 times 7.5 squared, you should get 176.63 because it said go to the nearest hundredth of a square unit. And then feet squared would be your answer. So that's how you would find the distance around the courtyard and the area. Okay, so now we're going to try some practice problems. So y'all pause the video and try this one by yourself, and then unpause the video and I'll go over the answers. So we want to draw a circle P. So here's circle P. P is going to be at the center because it says it's circle P. Here is a diameter. Here is a radius. And it says the center needs to be labeled. So putting P at the center labels it. Okay, so that would be part A. For part B, find the circumference. So our circumference formula is 2 pi times r. So pi, it says use 3.14, and then our radius is 0.5. So if you multiply that, you should get 3.14 meters for your answer. Okay, now let's try these two. So y'all again pause the video and try them by yourself, and then I'll go over them after y'all have attempted them. For the area of a circle, we're going to use pi r squared. So it tells us to use 3.14, and then our radius is 31. So if you plug 3.14 times 31 squared, you should get 3,017.54. And then it says yard squared. I think I have a typo there. It should be centimeters squared. That should be square centimeters. Okay, so now we're going to do the next one. We want to find the area. So area is pi r squared, and it says use 3.14. And then our radius, they tell us our diameter is 1, so our radius is going to be a half. So if you do 3.14 times 1/2 squared, you should get 0.79, and then units are yards squared. So that would be your answer for that one. Okay, let's try one more practice problem. So y'all try this one by yourself, pause the video, and then I'll go over it once y'all have attempted it. So we have a lid that we roll in a straight line around 3 rotations. So basically we are looking for 3 times our circumference. So that's 6, and it says instead of using pi, use 22 over 7. And it says the diameter is 35. So half of 35 would be your radius. So if you multiply, you should get 330 inches. So that would be your answer for that one. So hopefully you were able to get most of those practice problems correct. Now we're going to look at a challenge question. We want you to find the circumference and area of the shaded region. And it says leave your answer in terms of pi. So y'all pause the video and try it, and then I will go over it. So for the circumference, our formula is 2 pi times the radius. So 2 pi times 5, which is 10 pi. And then we are only looking for part of the circle. We are looking for 60 degrees of it out of a total 360. So if you multiply 10 pi, 60 over 360 is 1/6. So if you multiply that, you get 10 pi over 6, which is 5 pi over 3. So that would be the circumference of the part that we're looking for. For the area, we're going to use pi r squared. So pi, our radius is 5 squared. That would be 25 pi. And again, we're going to multiply it by 60 over 360 because we're only looking for part of the circle. So 25 pi times 1/6 basically is 25 pi over 6 meters squared. So that would be the area. So if any of y'all got those right, that's awesome. But that's how you would work through those. If you didn't get it right, that's okay. It's a challenge question on purpose because it's supposed to be more difficult. So your homework is 1 through 30, so make sure y'all do those tonight so we can go over any questions you have tomorrow.